Welcome to Shaped by Faith. We shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. I am always excited about my guest, but I'm particularly excited about today's guest. It is the 1st of January. I have an amazing guest on today on Shaped by Faith. He is a Reverend Connor Reed, and he is a pastor of youth at Macedonia Baptist Church. He has lost over 120 pounds, and that is a really big deal. Today, he's going to share his weight loss story with all of us here on Shaped by Faith. Thank you so much for coming on Shaped by Faith. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So before we get into your personal story, Pastor Reed, I want to ask you, what led you to the ministry field?
Yeah, that's a question that I get a lot, especially being 23 years old. When I was at Kentucky Wesleyan College, I was a freshman. I was new, and I really wasn't comfortable in my major. There were things that I was involved in that I didn't do when I was growing up. See, I was born and raised in a Christian home. I went to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. And so I was very strong in my faith growing up, middle school and high school. But when I got to college, I lost sight of who I was and who I was supposed to be. And so I was involved in things that a Christian should, not be involved in. God was really dealing with me, and every path that I tried to open for myself, every door that Connor tried to open for himself, God essentially closed until finally, after spending a couple of summers with Crossings Ministries, my first semester, my sophomore year, that was when God really got a hold of me and let me know in that moment that what I had been doing and how I was living was not the plan that He had for me. It took a lot of discernment, a lot of time with the Lord for me to seek His will, and ultimately He led me away from Kentucky Wesleyan College and called me into ministry. It was really nothing that I did. It was everything that God did, and Him leading me to that.
And I love that. God, as you said, when we try and force doors open or trying to open them ourselves, it just doesn't work out so well. But God's plans always work out. So you obviously had to have that discernment and that connection as you drew closer and you drew back to God in what He was calling you to do. And that's what you're doing right now. And I'm sure He's got great, mighty more things for you to do as well. I love the way how God pursues each of us, and He certainly pursued you, and you were obedient to Him. So I want to ask you, as a youth pastor, what are some of the things you do?
Yeah, so a lot of my time as youth pastor is spent ministering to middle and high school students, but more so to their families, especially this past year with everything going on. My ministry has been geared more towards the parents than the students, keeping that communication with the parents, because right now a lot of our students, our youth, are relying and looking towards their parents for answers. But a lot of time as my role as youth pastor, I spend my Wednesday evenings teaching to our youth, and Sunday mornings teaching middle school and high school students, and planning activities and events for middle and high school students. So that's just a little bit of what I do as a youth pastor, and I also fulfill other duties within the church. But my main focus as a youth pastor is teaching and encouraging and building up the next generation.
Okay, that's wonderful, and I believe God is raising up a young generation that's going to serve Him and serve Him with excellence. So what are some of the challenges, if you see any of the challenges that our youth are facing currently that maybe you or I didn't have to deal with growing up?
Yeah, I think more so today, with everything going on in our world, a lot of today's youth, they're facing having to be alone, having to deal with things by themselves, and and I don't want to make it sound that like I never spent time alone, but I never felt like I was forced to spend time alone. And what I mean is that we see a lot of our youth aren't going to school in person, and our youth parents, they still have to work, so they're spending a lot of time alone and having to work through that and deal with that. It's ultimately a struggle for them because their lives have completely changed today.
Absolutely. So. And, kids need to be social and they need to be around people. Even if they're more introverted, we all need that social interaction. Okay, so you also work with KWC Campus Ministries, which I'm very familiar with. So what are the things that you do within this ministry to help out?
Yeah, so I'm actually, it's actually kind of a odd scenario. So I'm actually partnered through the Kentucky Baptist Convention with the Davis-McLean Baptist Association. So I'm partnered with three entities. You've got the Kentucky Baptist Convention, our local Baptist Association with Kentucky Wesleyan College. Sean Toms is the director of campus ministries. So really, I just help. I just aid him in what the campus ministry needs.
Yes.
I do a lot with the small group ministry, but mainly I just help in different ways that Sean and Anna and the other people need whatever they need help with on campus. So I'm really just. I'm really just a help to them to essentially try to get students plugged into area churches. That would be the best way that I could describe it.
Right. KWC has a fantastic campus ministries. I've known Sean Toms for a while. He actually used to coach one of our sons, who's now 29 years old. So he's just got an amazing heart for the Lord. And they've got a strong prayer ministry as well. And I'm excited to help out when I can with their ministry, with the ladies. It's just a blessing. So I want to ask you, what do you enjoy most about being a youth pastor and about just helping out within this ministry?
That's also a question that I get often, and the answer never changes. It never changes whether it's youth ministry or whether it's a college ministry or whether it's being able to help in a senior adult ministry. The thing that I enjoy most is being able to do what God's called me to do. There's not a day that I ever second guess my calling. And there are days where God affirms to me that, Connor, this is what I have for you. So, just being able to do what God has called me to do and designed my life to do is ultimately what I enjoy the most.
That brings so much peace also and contentment to our own hearts when we know that we're doing what God has given us to do. And there's just such a peace and contentment. And it doesn't mean we're not going to have trials or challenges or some bumpy roads along the way. It just knows that, yes, this is what God has called me to do. And it, especially at a young age, I just find that it's just refreshing to know that people are in their calling. They're where they need to be. You are the next generation. You are the younger generation that's being raised up, to do what God is calling you to do. And so you can have a great impact on the youth. And, that includes middle school, high school, and college, but also in the senior community. You'd mentioned that as well. I think sometimes we think, they already know it all. But you know what? They need encouragement too. And they need refreshing. And they need someone to speak life, into them as well. In the second segment, we're going to get into your weight loss. So I'm really, really excited about that. How has being in the ministry impacted you and your wife personally? We only have about 30 seconds.
Yeah, being in the ministry, there are difficult times, but there are also times where, we never feel that we're alone. We know that God's always with us, but being in ministry, especially being newly married, we've got a ton of support and a ton of people backing us and loving on us and encouraging us in everything we do.
Oh, that's wonderful. We're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to hear your weight loss story. So everyone stay tuned for more Shaped by Faith coming up next. Welcome back to Shaped by Faith, where we shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. My guest is the Reverend Connor Reed, and he is the pastor of youth at Macedonia Baptist Church. And we're going to hear his personal story of how he has lost more than 120 pounds, and that's an amazing weight loss. For anyone that's lost weight, you know, that's a big deal. So, Connor, we're going to hear your story. I'm excited for our listeners to hear it. I know you're going to encourage them and inspire them and motivate them. So let's just start. So at one time you weighed 430 pounds. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's close. It's been a while ago that I don't even really remember, but I know it was somewhere close to that.
Mm-hmm. So how tall are you?
I am 6'7".
And that's very tall. You're as tall as my my son-in-law. Okay, so that's tall. So 430 pounds on 6'7". You could probably carry it well, but it was probably a little too much weight for you to be carrying around, right?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us how you were, because I know weight affects everything. How were you feeling physically at a heavier weight, maybe mentally, spiritually? Just kind of give us a rundown on all that.
Yeah, so at the time I weighed that weight, I was still playing football. I was actually playing at Kentucky Wesleyan College.
Okay.
So at the time, my weight had a purpose. I felt that I could justify my weight because I was active. I was lifting. I was on all these different meal plans, these meal supplements, things like that.
Uh-huh.
But as I stopped playing football after my freshman year of college, I remember feeling just not myself. I had totally lost sight of who I was. Mm-hmm. And it was at that time that I really felt I needed to make a change, but I didn't know how to go about that change.
Okay. So, Connor, what were you eating? Like, what was your typical day of eating during that time after college?
So I would eat, I grew up with the traditional, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 3 meals a day, things like that. So it really wasn't anything crazy. Sometimes I might have had a larger meal than I should have, but really it was the 3 meals a day, and portion control was really my biggest issue.
Okay. All right. So, and I'm sure you're a tall person. I'm sure, and you're burning calories because, the taller you are, you do burn more calories. I want to ask you, so were you active like after college or did you stop? So I know playing sports, you're really active. You're practicing, you're playing, but what about after college?
So after I left Kentucky Wesleyan, the Lord led me to Crossings Ministries in Baghdad, Kentucky, which is a camp ministry. And I was on staff there as a maintenance intern. So I was pretty active in my work. I was working outside in the summer, didn't really have many breaks because I was working maintenance. I was carrying things, running here and there, just, working long hours in the day. And so I was active, but I wasn't like working out. I wasn't watching what I was eating or anything like that.
Okay. So I've got to ask you, what made you decide to work on losing weight, and when did you begin doing that?
Yeah, well, so I actually had started at Crossings, and I ended up losing about 20 pounds then. Well, then after that summer of 17, I got another maintenance job, and then, that was when God ultimately was leading me back to Owensboro, and so I had applied here at Macedonia and was kind of in a waiting period. Well, during that time, leading up to that, I had stopped working because I didn't know how things were going to go, so God really called me just to rely on Him during that time, and so I ended up putting that 20 pounds back on, and when I started here at Macedonia, I was about 400 pounds. And, I was living by myself in Owensboro. I wasn't married yet. And so I wasn't eating right at all. And so after I had gotten engaged in February of 2019, I remember just feeling bad. My blood pressure was up. I would sweat under a ceiling fan. And it was really then where it was, I wanted to be the best I could be, not only for myself, but for my wife and ultimately for God. So it was the winter of 2019 leading into that spring that I really set out to make this lifestyle change.
Okay, so what are some things that you did, maybe in changing the way that you were eating?
Yeah, so at first, I got hooked up with a couple of people that were doing, selling different things, different meal supplements, and the discipline side of that, it just wasn't for me. There were different schedules that, hey, you could eat all this during this time, or this, and so it just wasn't for me. And then my wife and I, after we got married, like I said, I grew up eating home cooked meals. But I knew that portion control was a thing I needed to work on, so we started doing HelloFresh.
Yes.
We did that for a while. I joined Planet Fitness back at the beginning, and was slowly starting to see the weight loss happen. But then it came to me where if I wanted to be about 280. Okay. Which was 120 pounds I needed to lose. And it was in that time that God said, you can do this if you really focus on me.
That's awesome. And Connor, I've learned, I'm in the fitness industry, that when we do focus on Jesus Christ, He helps us not only with our spirit, but He also helps us with our physical body when we rely upon Him. And I know it's not easy. I mean, I think some people think that, whoever's in the fitness industry, it must be easy for them. Discipline isn't easy, regardless of what kind of discipline it is, So disciplining our bodies for God's purposes is definitely challenging. I don't think it comes easy to anyone, but it becomes easier to do once you start to rely on Jesus Christ. And, it doesn't mean you're not going to have temptations, or you're not going to, fall back or have a bad day. But it means that as you focus on Christ, He will help you. And I would ask you, Connor, to explain, how does that work? I mean, how do you focus on Christ and have Him help you in that area?
Yeah, well, so the passage of Scripture that I used was Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. And it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths." And so, it was really coming to the mindset of, my body is not mine. The Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians, he lays it out for us that our body is not ours, that our body is the temple, it is like the temple of God, and we need to take care of that.
Right.
And so then I want to, Matthew chapter 4, we see Jesus is tempted with food, after fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. And in that, Jesus really had to focus on God to be satisfied. And so ultimately, understanding that, there is something, there's someone much larger than me, and it is God Himself, and that He has my best interest in mind. And when I set out to follow Him, that He will, in fact, take care of me and provide for me.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up the mindset. It's so important. And I love that scripture, Proverbs 3, 5, 6. Actually, that is just one of my all-time go-to verses. It really helps me stay grounded and maintain focus. But, also like you brought up, knowing that the Word does say to honor God with our bodies. And that's not only our physical bodies, it's like in our mindset as well, what we're thinking about, what we're eating, what we're drinking, our actions, how we speak to one another. I mean, it all goes together as we honor God. And it is easier as you focus on Christ. And I really want people to understand that if they're not doing that right now and they've been trying it on their own or their own willpower, or I can do this, we really can't. But we can do it when we rely upon God. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It actually works. God's Word actually works as we put it into practice. Connor, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to hear more from you, okay?
All righty.
So everyone stay tuned for more Shaped by Faith. Welcome back to Shaped by Faith. We shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. So my guest Reverend Connor Reed. I'm just going to call you Connor. He is a pastor of youth at Macedonia Baptist Church. And, I loved what you were saying in the last segment about, the mindset and trusting in the Lord and not leaning on our own understanding and allowing God to help you with weight loss and everything. So I'm sure you received plenty of questions about your weight loss, for obvious reasons, because people have noticed that transformation. And we can all help each other, and we can all give encouragement to others who are willing to take care of their bodies as a way of honoring God. So I would love for you to share with our listening audience some tips and where maybe they should start, maybe with weight loss or some things that they can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to when I started. Like I said earlier, I tried so many different things. I tried so many different plans, but it ultimately came down to asking God to show me, Connor Reed, what worked for me. Mm-hmm. So if anyone is listening and anyone is encouraged, and anyone is inspired to do this, I eat one meal a day. I eat dinner. That is the time that me and my wife, she's a teacher, and so that is the one time that we get to fellowship together with a meal. So that is the time that I've set aside to fill myself with food. Mm-hmm. But if you are encouraged and you are seeking to do this, I personally have a comparison issue. I love to compare myself to other people. I love to compare myself to other things. I love to compare what I have to what other people have. But ultimately, that's not right. So don't compare yourself to me. Right now is the time, I encourage you to start today. If you're feeling led to do something, you need to act upon it. Just ask God for direction. What I do may not work for you, and that's okay. But what I do know to be true is that when we remove ourselves and we say, God, here am I, here is my body, here is my plan. God, whatever you would have for me, whenever we say that, that is when we really see God work. And it's not that God hasn't worked or isn't working for us or in our favor. We're just fully removing ourselves for the plan that God has. It is not Connor Reed's doing to be able to lose 120 pounds, over 120 pounds now in a year. That is something that only God could do. Because I've worked out, I've eaten healthier, but ultimately my lifestyle change came from putting my whole focus on God and letting Him take control.
That is so good. And Connor, you fully surrendered your body to Him and everything about you. I think that's important too, to encourage people to just surrender. And you can simply just say, here I am, Lord. I need help, and I just want to surrender. I've got this going on, and I want to give it to you. And, thank you so much for sharing your weight loss story. I'd love to have you on in about 6 more months to see where you're at. And, and thank you for encouraging our audience. And, all right. Well, way to go, Connor. You're welcome. And thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for listening. I'm Theresa Rowe. Everyone have a blessed day. Bye.